I'm going to give you a breakdown, a step-by-step of how to go from working in academia to working an industry job. And you'll see that I'll spend a lot of time talking especially about the mistakes you should avoid. Because every single time somebody lands in my inbox and says, hey, Dr. G, I'm struggling with switching from academia to a non-academic job, it's often one big thing, and I'm going to be sharing that with you in this video. So the first thing I do want to acknowledge is that career changes are not easy. If you think that just because you have a PhD or advanced education, it's going to be easy because your degrees will speak for themselves, please, I would love for you to disabuse your mind of that, because that can be the reason you become incredibly depressed on this journey of transitioning from academia to a non-academic job. And the reason I can tell you that is because I went through a lot of that myself, where I kept on asking myself, oh my goodness, I did all the right things society said to do. I went to school, I got the degrees, I published the papers. How come nobody is paying attention to me? And I want to say that it has absolutely nothing to do with you. It has absolutely nothing to do with you, and everything to do with how different life is once you step out of the ivory tower, okay? Okay, so now you've accepted that career switching is not a simple, thing to do, right? But do not let it hold you back from leaving if you really need and want to leave, okay? Because prolonging something just because you don't know what the alternative is, or just because you're unsure what the future is going to look like, it's also a really bad reason to continue staying in a situation you don't like, okay? So don't let that stop you either. Now I want to touch on the fact that there are a lot of cultural differences between academia and industry. Yes, duh, Dr. G, we know that. Yes, I know you know that, but sometimes we forget this, and which is why one of the biggest mistakes I see a lot of academics make when they are making this switch is in terms of their resume and how they talk about their skills. Okay, so if you have stayed on this channel for even longer than 5 minutes, I'm sorry I'm clapping my hands, so I don't want to be dramatic. Let me let me keep my hands to myself. I just get passionate about this because I've seen so many people send me their resume that they are using to apply for non-academic jobs, and it usually takes me 5 seconds to know exactly what is wrong. So here's the deal. I've done another video where I talked about the differences between an academic CV and a industry resume, but these two things are different. If you keep submitting an academic CV for industry jobs, you will keep getting turned down. Yes, there may be somebody that takes the time to read your resume, but the reality is that when you apply for jobs in a lot of companies outside of academia, your resume is ran through an automation system. This automation system is looking for specific keywords. Keep that word in your mind, okay? Specific keywords and specific skills it has been told to filter the resumes for. And so before your resume may ever get to an actual human being who may read and could maybe, like, after a minute of reading your resume, try to translate your skills for you, your resume would already have been eliminated. And so this is very likely why you're struggling to land a job outside of academia. How do I know this? The school of hard knocks taught your girl, okay? I went through this where I kept on submitting my academic CV to job upon job, that sometimes I would look at the job description, I'm like, I'm very, very much qualified for this. Why didn't I hear back? And it was because I was leading with my papers and my talks and the fact that I studied a specific bacterial protein, and later on in my postdoc studying a specific disease in premature infants. I was leading with these big ideas and big topics, which is perfect for academia. But then when you're using the same resume to apply, or the same CV to apply for jobs outside of academia, and these automated systems are reading through your resume, they don't find those keywords, they're like, she's not qualified. When she could very well be qualified. So that's the first mistake I'm going to caution you to avoid. So now that I've told you that, okay, what should you do? Writing the right resume comes with an understanding of what industry and most non-academic institutions stand for, which is their businesses. Unlike academia, what academia purports itself to be, right? Academia says they're not a business, but okay. So most non-academic jobs are businesses, right? I work in the biotech industry. It's business. There are projects that can just get cut off just like that because that's no longer a business priority. At the end of the day, there are stakeholders, there are people that have bought shares within these companies that have to be made happy. And so it is a business, okay? They exist to make money. So whenever industry or a non-academic job puts up a job listing, it is there because there is a specific business need that needs to be met, and we need a person to meet that need. And so when you're writing your resume, it is very, very important that you write your resume in such a way that demonstrates that you can meet that business lead. I would say maybe the only thing that is different in this sense is if you're going from academia into a research and development role, so an R&D role. Usually a lot of R&D roles are very similar to the research that we do in academia, and so maybe you could get away with an academic CV that talks about your research. But even then, you want to look at, let's say, I'm going to use a biotech example again. All right, let's say that they're looking for somebody that can do cell culture. They're looking for somebody that has worked with T cells. They're looking for somebody that has worked with NK cells or used flow cytometry. Then, even though you worked on a wonderful research topic, what you really need to do is that on your industry resume, you want to highlight those skills. You want to say something like, I used flow cytometry to answer this research question where we looked at T cells in ABC disease. So we're not going to say we worked on ABC disease. We're going to talk about the tool that we use. We're going to talk about the cell type that we worked on. And why are we doing that? We're doing that because that's what the job description is asking for. And if we just skip over that and bury everything in our big research topic, the skills are going to get lost. When you submit your resume to these automated systems, it's going to get weeded out and you are going to get frustrated. So really understanding that, again, industry jobs they're meeting a business need. And because they're meeting a business need, they need a specific person with specific skills. You are going to sit down and look at your research that you've done so far and look at the specific skills, the specific tools, the specific methodologies that align with that job description. And you're going to write your resume to reflect and to say, because every time I tell people this, I say, when you look at a job description, it's sort of asking you, can you do ABC? And you, with your resume, are going to say, yes, I can. If I ask you, let's say, a yes or no question, can you ride a bike? And then you start giving me an answer about how your grandmother rode a bike and how you've studied how to ride a bike and how, this many people ride bikes in the United States or in whichever country that you live in. And you say nothing about the fact that you can ride a bike. Again, to the side, right? Mention the fact that, yes, I can do this. That's how a lot of industry job descriptions are written. And so, yes, you need to write your resume in such a way that it answers the questions that this job description is asking. If you've watched this video up until this point, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. It really does help with the algorithm. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Again, it helps with the algorithm and having YouTube suggest this video to people like you who may need this information. And somebody said this on one of my posts the other day, and I thought it was so brilliant. And he was saying that, you want the person who will end up reading your resume to even think that the job description was written for you. Okay, now of course, this doesn't mean that you have to meet every single thing in a job description. Now, having been, getting to be on some hiring decisions more recently, one of the things that I realized is that a lot of the time when these job postings are made, it's more of like, if we had the most perfect, most ideal type of situation, this is the person that we would want. But if this person can do 1, 2, 3 out of, let's say, 7 or 8 things, then, we're going to give them a shot. We're going to bring them in for an interview. So when you read these job descriptions, don't be intimidated if you don't meet every single line of criterion, okay? The second thing that I want to talk about, which maybe I should have talked about first, or maybe as a prequel to the whole video, is I really find it helpful, and I found it helpful when I narrowed in on a set of jobs that I wanted. I wasn't just putting, at first, when I was looking for jobs outside of academia, I was just sending my resumes to anything and everything, hoping that something would stick. That's the easiest way to frustrate yourself. And if you watch some of the videos I did recently, one of the videos I did recently on, how to change jobs when you don't have experience in that specific field, I talk about that. Do not just spray your resume everywhere hoping something will stick. Nothing will stick. Nothing. Trust me when I say this. Nothing will. That's sort of like standing in a dark room and then throwing a dart and hoping that it hits the bullseye. Yes, it could hit the bullseye, but very likely it's not, right? So I don't want to sound like I'm yelling at you. I'm not yelling at you. I'm just really passionate about this topic. So make sure that you sort of narrow in on a set of maybe 2 or 3 jobs. When you've done this, right? When you do this, let me tell you some of the advantages. Number 1 is you'll be able to write a generalized, tailored resume. I don't have the best word for that, but basically what I mean by that is you won't have to write a brand new resume every single time you're applying for jobs, because if you're applying for regulatory writing jobs, then you would have taken the time, and I'm going to tell you how to do that. You would have taken the time to actually write a resume that's generalized for that job type, and so you can submit that same resume to multiple of that same type of job. This is why I think it's really important to hone in on 2 or 3, highly recommend 2 or 3 types of jobs, and then create a resume for each type. So you would have 2 or 3 resumes, and then you would use it in that manner. Now, how do you get to this? The way you get to this, and recently I made a LinkedIn post on this exact topic, is you will go to LinkedIn or Indeed or your favorite job search app, and then you will type in the job title that you want. Now, when you do that, I want you to select 5 of those job descriptions, and you can read them manually, or you could copy and paste them into a tool like ChatGPT or Google Gemini. And then you could ask the tool to help you pull the most commonly occurring skills from the 5 job descriptions that you put into them. Once you do that, the tool is going to give you a list of skills. Now, once you have that list of skills, this is where you're going to take that list and then now compare that with what you've done in the past, experiences that you have, the tools that you've used in the past, right? And then align them. And so once you do that, you're going to write your resume, you're going to rewrite your academic CV with these skills in mind and with the intent of creating a resume that has these very specific keywords that are common to this particular job type, and now you have a generalized resume for that job type. So you can do one for medical writing, you could do one for medical science liaison jobs, you could do one for a regulatory affairs position. Once you've done that, make sure you proofread, and then you can start applying for jobs. If you want to start using the easy apply button, okay, and just easy apply to things, do this first and then easy apply. Then you're going to increase your chances of getting, at least an interview and ultimately the job that you want. Another place where doing this exercise is helpful is with your LinkedIn profile, okay? Listen, I have a whole workshop on LinkedIn that I'm going to be doing on Saturday, February 24th. And I go through this step by step on how to do this and how to create a LinkedIn profile that's crisp and nice and attracts people to you. Because some of you have amazing experiences, you have exactly what somebody needs to fill their position, but you are not telling the right stories, and because of that, you're being bypassed, and I don't want that to happen to you. So another place where what I described with the 5 job descriptions and putting it in ChatGPT and pulling out skills, that's going to really come in handy with optimizing your LinkedIn profile. And if you want to learn more about doing that and making sure, not just for today, not just for now, but making sure that your LinkedIn profile is optimized for life and attracts opportunities for you, check out that workshop I'm going to be hosting on Saturday, February 14th at this link. The third prong I want to talk about is networking for these industry opportunities. Now, again, don't just assume that you're brilliant. Yes, you are brilliant, but we all need help in this life. And networking is a really great way to get help with your job search. Now, when I was looking for jobs outside of academia, using a tool like LinkedIn was incredibly helpful in networking and learning more about the biotech industry. I remember LinkedIn at the time, I don't know if they still have it, but LinkedIn at the time had this feature where they would recommend people to you that you could reach out to directly. You could tell them what you wanted to do, and they would curate a list of people for you, and you could reach out to them. I don't know if they still do that or if they have that in premium. I don't use LinkedIn Premium, but that notwithstanding, okay, even if you don't have that feature, one of the things that you can do is conduct informational interviews. Okay, so the way you do this is once you've optimized your LinkedIn profile, written a really good resume, you've started applying for jobs, I want you to also spend some time talking to people who are already in these professions. You can do this by looking for local events in your area and talking to people there, or you could use LinkedIn to find professionals in this field and send them a short message that says, hello, my name is so-and-so. I'm interested in working in this field, and I'd like to reach out to you so that I could learn more. You don't need everybody to respond to you. You just need 1 or 2 people to do that. Once they respond, make sure you show up on time. Talk to them, gather your intel. I do have another video on informational interviews and the questions you could ask. Go ahead and ask them and collect that intel. What this is going to help you to do is, beyond reading the job descriptions and finding keywords and optimizing your resume in LinkedIn, now you will have a language that is used in that industry, that's commonly used in that industry. And you can add that to your own language once you start landing interviews and you're answering questions, okay? Because when you go into an interview, for instance, and let's say you have some experience writing papers, like medical writing, you have some experience writing papers, but before you talk to somebody in an informational interview, you didn't know what an application note was, or you didn't know what a white paper was. Well, now, because you heard it in the informational interview, you went and you did your own research, and you can talk intelligently about application notes and white papers and whatever else they may be asking you about. And that's one of the reasons I absolutely love informational interviews. You just learn so much from somebody who is already in that field, and a lot of that is the language that's even used, so that you can begin to do research on those things that you don't know, and so that you can speak intelligently when you get into an interview. Part B of this third point is also connecting with hiring managers. Even though I connected with a lot of hiring managers in the biotech, medical device, pharma space, yes, not every role was tailor-made for me, but the very first medical writing role I got into was posted by somebody, a hiring manager I was connected with. And I was able to apply for that job quickly because she posted it, and then I saw it and I applied for it really quickly. And then a month later or so, I had the job, right? And so imagine that I didn't see that and I was just going through job boards to apply. Well, by the time a job usually gets on a job board, so many hundreds of people have applied for that job, right? But if you see it directly from that recruiter, you have the chance to be in the front seat and apply really quickly. And so I highly recommend connecting with recruiters. How do you find these people? Just type in recruiter. Just type in recruiter, biotech, recruiter, medical device, whichever industry you want to work in, recruiting or recruiter or hiring manager, something in that area. You're going to find a list of people, you can start connecting with them. Now, I've gotten messages sometimes from people who tell me that I don't know what my transferable skills are, or I don't know how to talk about my transferable skills, or, there's a lot of confusion around that, right? And recently, LinkedIn actually came out with an article where they listed out different skills that are in high demand based on company postings data, okay? So when I looked at that list, I immediately said, if you went to grad school, you have all of these. So on this list, you had communication, customer service, leadership, project management, analytics, teamwork, sales, problem solving, research, and the top skill of the moment was adaptability. How do you communicate teamwork on your resume? Well, if you went to graduate school, then you know that a lot of our research is collaborative. We end up working with teams of postdocs and PIs and other graduate students and technicians in the lab, right? And so you can touch on how you worked collaboratively with all these people in that role to showcase the fact that, you are skilled in teamwork. When it comes to project management, yes, we are not told that exactly that it is project management that we're doing, but when you're able to plan experiments and execute those experiments, and then from those experiments extract data, and then from the data tell a story, well, all of that planning and executing is a form of project management. And even if you don't have a certificate in project management, you can talk about how you manage your projects this way. If you got stuck with a research problem, well, how did you become unstuck? What were the problem solving skills you used there? You may want to discuss that as well on, let's say, a cover letter, or especially when you get into the interviews, right? Because usually I feel like it's at the interview stage that these skills, you get to talk about these skills. But even with writing your resume, you can talk about how you use your problem solving skills to come unstuck in some of the challenges that you face within your research. Yes, you've published a whole bunch of papers, but I'm sure that there are tools that you use, right? On this list, there was analytics. There are analytics tools that you use to analyze the data and ultimately tell a cohesive story. Talk about that. Again, I really want to emphasize on the fact that you should not bury your skills, and especially these skills that LinkedIn says are in demand for 2024 based on company postings, right? It's really important that you don't bury them in the big overall stories, that you spend some time teasing out these skills and identifying them and showcasing them. Now, I know that for a lot of academics, this can feel like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that I have to boil down all my research into these like bullet pointed skills. I've had that complaint too. Do you want a job or do you not want a job? This is the question I end up asking people sometimes. I know that there's so many things about the career market and about the world that are unfair. And yes, I don't claim to understand them all. But when I've given this advice to people, they've taken it and applied it, it's really help them in finding new jobs and finding their next opportunity. I don't want, the fact that we want to show, we want to show the man. I want to submit my academic CV and I want people to understand. Yes, I understand. But in the current job market, with the way the world is moving so fast, there are sometimes, I don't know, I don't even see it as a compromise. But sometimes there are compromises to be made. And maybe this is one of the compromises you make if you want to work outside of academia. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, make sure to give it a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that because it really does help with the algorithm recommending this video to more people like you who may need this exact same help.